Hello everyone, this is Jim Duffy of Refining Fire Chiles, www.superhotchiles.com, and we're in the grow area here in Lindale, Georgia. And what we're going to talk about today, because some people have asked me about pruning, topping and pruning pepper plants. And so we're just going to kind of give you an idea what we do, although it's not gospel, but we're just going to kind of show you what we do. So hold on a second here. I need to grab my bucket or empty pot to collect the stuff I'm pruning. It's better to do that than just throw them on the ground, because then you got to pick them up off the ground. So why do the job twice when you can just throw them in a bucket and then throw in the trash? Now, I don't compost my pepper leaves, or if I find bad peppers on the plant, I don't compost them, because sometimes, you know, there can be insects on them that I don't want them to be alive. So I'll throw them deep into the woods where other bugs are going to feast on them. Or if it's a pepper that has a hole in it and something's that went inside it, I'm going to throw that in the trash, because I don't want whatever's in that pepper to get bigger and come back, get me later on. So as you can see here, these plants are snow white. They are a white habanero type, and they get a little bit bigger in size and the pepper size than the Yucatan white, which is pretty much the same pepper as the Peruvian white lightning or the white bullet. Now, the Peruvian white lightning, the white bullet, the Yucatan white habanero, which I sell seeds for, sometimes plants, are very, very productive. They're shorter, more compact plants. But, and we've got a couple growing in pots right now. But I like the snow white better, because it can be more productive. It's bigger plants, and I'm going to show you why. But we're going to show you our pruning example on these plants right here, the snow white. Okay? So right here, hopefully I've got the camera angle right, and you can see the little hole in the pepper. See, there's a little hole in the pepper, so there might be something in there. I'm not going to break it open to find out. But so these peppers will be thrown in the trash, because there might be something in here, and I'm not going to break open every pepper to see what's in there. I know it's a bad pepper already, so it's going to get thrown out. So these plants here have not been pruned yet. So what do we prune? Okay. So first of all, we want to prune as much when the plants get a couple feet tall, like 2 feet tall or more, and it gets these big fat leaves. We want to prune these off. So what we'll do is we'll snap these off. And if they're in the same thing as the same joint or crotch or crook, we will be very careful if it's the same one as a pepper or a flower, because we don't want to lose that. So we're going to take off these lower branches. We really don't want any branches to grow out from the low area of the plant. Now, there will be an exceptions, and I'm going to show you the exception. So we'll get rid of these big leaves. Now, you see right here, we have a nice branch here that's got a lot of flowers on it. There's probably about 14 flowers. Normally, a plant that sprouts out a branch this low, I'll break off the branch and I'll pull it off, because a lot of times these lower branches, they're only going to give you like 1 or 2 peppers. So you're really wasting your time by letting all that energy of the plant go to that lower branch. So this branch here, I am going to snap off. It's got 1 or 2 flowers on it. It's coming off. And this one here, as you can see, it's really got no flowers on it. And it's coming from the lowest part of the stem, if you can see right there. So it's coming off. It's gone. Now this one here that's sprouted up alongside, that's got multiple flowers at the top of it and around it, I'm just going to take off these big leaves. And we got one here. Look at how many flowers are on here. There's a lot. If this branch had like 1 or 2 flowers on it and it's this low on the plant, I'm gonna break it off and get rid of it. But for now, I'm just gonna take off these lower leaves. And this is what I removed from the plant, okay? Now you can go up a little bit further and take off some of the bigger leaves if you want. And you can bend them up and snap them off, or you can pull them down. Now, what I'm gonna do later on is I'm probably gonna tie these 2 branches in, not too tight, maybe about this close in. And so you can see this whole area of the plant right now gonna have more airflow through it. And you can see all the pods on here. Now, I want you to look at this carefully here. Hopefully you can see it. And you can see the multiple flowers coming out. Okay? So that could get like 4 or 5 peppers coming right off of that one nook, those flower nodes. Okay? Now, what you want to do is don't leave your dead leaves in the bottom of the pot, because that's a place for insects to live and pests. So you want to clear that out. So this plant is ready now. Now, some people top their plants. Now, I don't really top my plants. I have before for various reasons, but normally if I did top my plant, I would go just above this V right here. Can you see the V? So the straight stem and then the V. I would go just above the V or just below the V. And then all these places where leaves were on the lower part of the stalk, branches would come out and you'd get a more compact, bushy plant. But it's never really been proven if topping plants by anyone gives you more peppers or less peppers. So I really don't top anymore, but I do take off the lower growth and the lower branches so I can get that airflow underneath here, which prevents disease and other things. For, you know, and it's, you know what? When you remove a lot of this lower growth and these larger leaves like these, okay, and here's the other plant over here that I haven't pruned yet, you get more airflow through the plant and more energy goes to the pods. Now, some people strip their plants. Now, I don't recommend stripping the plant. That's like pulling off every leaf and topping it. If you're gonna do that, it better be on a small plant that you've got in your house under lighting or whatever. It's really early in the season. Because if you really strip everything off your plants and top it all over the place, I want you to remember this. If you live in an area that's like north of the Mason-Dixon line, you know, you're gonna have a shorter season than people in the Southeast or like in Southern California or like South Texas. And what's gonna happen is when you top and strip your plant, you've eliminated about 3 weeks of growing time. It's gonna take about 3 weeks to get back. And if your season's already shorter than most, you're not gonna get production. You'll get a nice green bush, but you're not gonna get a lot of production. So I don't recommend topping and stripping the plants. I know some people did that a lot in Facebook groups and showed their photos in the past. And it was really cool. They had like a 1 foot tall plant with zillions of branches coming off it. But you know what? A lot of those people, I never ever did see a lot of production later on, you know? And production isn't 20 pods. Production's like 100 pods. So I never did see proof of getting that much, even in some people's videos on YouTube. So anyhow, so this is the growth I'm gonna pull off. Okay, so this branch is off here to the side. It's got a bunch of flowers on it. But again, I want to have some airflow around the plant, so off you go. There's probably a potential of about 10 pods on here. I want a little airflow in the plant. I want access to the plant, especially if pests show up later on. If pests show up later on and this lower part of the plant is loaded with so much growth and it's so congested with so much growth, well then, you know what? If I want to spray those pests, whether I use something inorganic like say 7 spray, I mean 7 spray is the one inorganic spray I would use from time to time if I have to, but I usually go with organic sprays first. So if I have this area clear of a lot of growth, I can easily see underneath my plants and I can see where the pest activity is, and I can get at it with a sprayer much easier. This whole area is covered with growth. I'm not going to be able to get access to the plants for spraying. So I want to have this airflow, which makes it less hospitable for disease and insects. And I also want to have that airflow and that space in case I have to go after the pests with a sprayer or something. So that's a couple reasons why. And then the third reason is when you pull off these big fat leaves on the lower part of the plant, and I'm going to show you another plant that's a capsicum annuum, then the energy of that plant can go to doing more flowering and more fruiting. Okay? So there's three reasons. Airflow to prevent pest and disease and encourage better, healthier growth and pod production, and then more better production because you don't have energy going to all these big fat leaves that are going to do really nothing for you. And then if you do have pests and you don't have a bunch of growth in the bottom, you can easily have access to the plant areas to spray and combat and fight those pests. Okay? So it's just all around, there's a lot of good reasons why you should prune the lower part of your plants. Now, you don't want to prune, even if you've got a lot of big fat leaves at the top of the plant, don't go crazy and like strip the plant of the leaves at the top, because over here you have a canopy that is shielding the pods from like sunburn and the flowers. So the flowers, when you start getting above 90 degrees, you can have potential flower drop. If it stays that hot, or I would say above 95 degrees is when you're going to have more flowers drop off and not turn to fruit. So you want to have a canopy here that kind of shades the flowers and shades the plants. So don't go crazy and pull off too many leaves. Right, what you see here is enough, okay? Now here's a capsicum annuum type behind me. This is Churrasero, and this is a variety. Let me get my little bucket. This is a variety that is from Spain, and this is where chorizo sausage comes from. And so this is Churrasero. So this is an annuum. So you're going to see there's not much jungle growth at the bottom, but there are big leaves. So we're gonna pick off these big leaves, and you can see some bugs that did a little bit of feasting. We don't know which kind they are, but when we get under the plant now to prune off these leaves, we look underneath the rest of the leaves and we try to see if we can spot any bugs on the leaves so we can address them. So getting down here and pruning the plant mid-season, or I'd say 1/3 of the season past, is a good opportunity to inspect your plants. Anytime you can get down and really get underneath your plants and look at them is perfect. You don't want to be that person on social media that shows a devastated plant loaded with insects and go, I don't know what happened, look at my plant. I know what happened. You don't look at your plants too often. And that's why now you've got an infestation. If you check your plants every day or two, you don't have to check every day, but every day or two, if you do things like the pruning I'm doing here, and if you got leaves that have a little bit of bacterial spot on them or some issue going on with the leaves, you definitely want to pull those off. Even if they're not at the bottom of the plant, if they're close to the top of the plant, pick those off, okay? Because sometimes something will affect the leaf, and if you get it off, that's the only problem, is the leaf. You leave it on, and then whatever thing was causing that leaf to get funky spreads into the stem and the whole plant, and then you lose the whole plant. So if you see yucky leaves, pick them off. And sometimes you might have to pick off a majority of leaves, and if you got to do that to save the plant, do it, because your only other choice is it's going to spread into the plant's bloodstream and it's going to kill the plant. But if it gets to that point, you're better off yanking the plant, because some of these plant related diseases are spread by insects, and once it gets in the plant, it's in the plant, and the plant's going to get crappy, and then it can transmit to the other plants around it. So it's better you deal with it early than later on losing a couple of plants. Now, I'm not a botanist and I'm not a horticulturist, so a lot of you will send me pictures of stuff and say, what's going on? and I really can't answer your questions, because a lot of times, like I said, I'll just pick off the bad leaves, and then if I see the plant still continue to get crappier, I yank the plant and throw it away, because I don't want that plant affecting the other plants. Okay. Now over here is some sugar rush cream. It's a bacatum. They grow all over the place like a jungle. Most bacatums do. So I'll be picking off a lot of the undergrowth as much as possible, but eventually all these plants have a vine-like behavior, and they're just going to just grow all over each other. And I'm not going to get the desired airflow on a bacatum that I could get on a Capsicum annuum or a Capsicum chinense. I'd really have to strip a lot. But let's go over there anyway really quick. So now you've seen me strip the leaves, do a little pruning on a Capsicum chinense, and now we'll come over here to this bacatum, which is Sugar Rush Cream. Okay. So what do we have here? So we have a branch coming out the bottom. That's gone. And all these lower leaves are getting picked off. Now, if you have a plant that's only about a foot tall, and you would like the branches, you would like to get a more bushier plant, and you want the branches to grow out from the main stem. Okay, when you pick off the leaves, don't pull off the leaves like I just did, where I just snapped them off, because you can see you get a little bit of growth in that little crook right there, whatever the technical term is called. And if you wanted a branch to come out of there, you won't want to rip off this leaf. What you want to do is you want to come over here and pinch the leaf off. Okay, and then hopefully you'll get a branch growing out of there, and you'll get more of a bush, okay, than a taller plant. So you can do that as well if you want. Okay. But so I'm just going to pick off whatever I can pick off. Now, I don't want any branches to grow out of the lower bottom, so I just snap the whole thing off, okay? Here's a branch that was starting to grow. So now I've got some airflow coming in here. Of course, I didn't get to the back plants, and I don't want this video to be super long and me keep repeating the same thing. But now I've got some airflow coming in here, and I've got a little bit of view of the plants. But like I said, when you're growing Capsicum bacatum types, Sugar Rush Peach, Sugar Rush Cream, and other ahi types, they're going to go all over the place. You see how this is like, we already have the main stem tied to the stake. See right here? But look, these branches are just like flopping all over. It gets vine-like. So there's nothing I can do about that. But you know what? If I can get the plant to have a little bit more airflow and promote a little bit more pepper growth, we're already getting peppers, as you can see right here, then that's a good thing. Okay, so we're going to take a walk down to the row, and I'm just going to have you look at stuff I worked on yesterday. This is the last of the plants that I have to prune, is this last row, and then there's a little bit on the side of my greenhouse, like about 4 growing stations. I call these growing stations. I have 4 plants per growing station. Okay, I just picked that off. And that's what happens. I look back at the plant and I go, I could pick that off too. But you see, I've got that little canopy over here that's kind of going to shade the flowers of the plant. Okay. So if we walk down here, I haven't done these yet, but if you walk down here, you can see these are Pimento di Arnoia, and you can see they're pruned back pretty well. That's an annuum. And then here is Pimenta Espelette. You can see I pruned them pretty good. And these are Hallows Eve. This is a Boot 90 cross. And you can see I pruned them really good. See, there's like no big leaves all the way up to here. And we still have some big fat leaves here to shade the plants in the canopy. This is a French sweet pepper variety. They were one of my late transplants. I picked off a few of the bottom leaves on there, but not much. And you can see how clear it is down here. So when I lift up this net and I want to inspect for insects, and I need to spray for insects, I can look and I can see underneath most of this canopy, and it'll be easier for me to get with a spray nozzle to address any insect issues I may have. Okay. And this is Red Dominica. a habanero from the island of Dominica, not Dominican Republic, and it's already cleared. So I've cleared all these rows already. These rows are done. All I have to do is the back part of this last 2 rows, past that little hand truck you see right there, and then about 4 growing stations on the side of my greenhouse, and that's it. Okay,